quiet night in eastern Ukraine suddenly trembles under the weight of a massive explosion as a humble student dormitory is transformed into a landscape of smoldering ruins, while cries for vengeance echo from the halls of the Kremlin. With at least 10 lives lost and dozens more fighting for survival beneath the weight of collapsed concrete, the tragedy in Starobilsk has pushed the ongoing confrontation between Russia and Ukraine into a volatile and even more dangerous phase. President Vladimir Putin has wasted no time in labeling this event a calculated and deliberate act of terror, vowing a response that promises to reshape the immediate future of the front lines. This moment captures the terrifying intersection of modern drone warfare and the human cost of a conflict where the lines between military objectives and civilian safe havens have become tragically blurred. The incident took place in the occupied town of Starobilsk, located within the Luhansk region, where the silence of the late-night hours was shattered by a precision strike that leveled a building housing students and educators. Local Russian-backed officials reported a grim toll, stating that 10 individuals lost their lives, while another 38 were left suffering from various injuries, and at the height of the chaos, rescue teams feared that at least 11 people remained missing under the mountain of debris. As the dust settled, the true scale of the human tragedy began to emerge through state media reports, which featured the story of 19-year-old Diana Shavkun, who was found suffering from severe head trauma caused by the falling concrete slabs. Doctors at the local facility continue to fight for her life and the lives of many others who were caught in the crossfire of a war that shows no sign of slowing down. According to the Russian administration, the dormitory belonged to a local pedagogical university and was housing approximately 86 individuals, including children and teachers, at the time of the impact. In the immediate aftermath of the tragedy, Vladimir Putin addressed the nation from the Kremlin, asserting that there were no military installations, intelligence headquarters, or related tactical services anywhere near the targeted building. By removing the possibility of a stray missile or a collateral accident, the Russian leader framed the event as an intentional strike designed to maximize civilian casualties. He detailed how the operation was allegedly carried out in 3 distinct stages, using a total of 16 drones to ensure the destruction of the target. Putin further dismissed any claims that Russian air defenses or electronic warfare systems might have accidentally diverted the drones into the residential area, insisting instead that the trajectory was planned and executed with lethal intent. This firm stance was followed by a direct order to the Russian military leadership to prepare formal proposals for a retaliatory strike against Ukrainian territory in the coming days. From the perspective of the Ukrainian military, the narrative of the event is fundamentally different, as they claim the operation was a surgical strike against a high-value military target. Kiev has identified the location not as a simple dormitory, but the operational headquarters for the elite Russian Rubicon drone unit. This specific unit is accused by Ukrainian intelligence of being responsible for numerous drone attacks on Ukrainian civilians and essential infrastructure, making it a primary objective for their counteroffensive operations. Ukrainian officials have been vocal in their defense of the mission, stating that their forces operate in strict accordance with international humanitarian law and the established rules of war to ensure that only military assets are degraded. They maintain that the facility was being used for military purposes and deny the Russian accusations of targeting a civilian pedagogical institution. This contradiction between the two sides highlights the immense difficulty of verifying information in a war zone, where every building can serve a dual purpose and every strike is met with a battle of narratives. The violence of the past few days has not been contained to the Luhansk region alone, as the reach of Ukrainian drones continues to extend deep into Russian-held territory and even into Russia itself. Reports from the Black Sea port city of Novorossiysk describe a night of sirens and fire as falling drone debris ignited a major blaze at a local oil depot. Local authorities in the southern Krasnodar region confirmed that the fragments of intercepted drones struck a fuel terminal and several administrative buildings, causing a significant fire that required a massive emergency response. While no deaths were reported in this specific incident, 2 individuals were hospitalized with injuries, and the psychological impact on the local population was profound as the war arrived at their doorstep. Further north, in the coastal town of Anapa, drones were reported to have damaged private homes, demonstrating that the conflict is increasingly affecting areas far removed from the primary battlefields of the Donbass. From the perspective of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, the narrative of the event is fundamentally different, as he claims the operation was a surgical strike against the headquarters of the Russian Federal Security Service, or FSB. Zelensky claimed that this operation resulted in nearly 100 casualties among the Russian occupying forces, which he described as a significant blow to the administrative and security apparatus of the Kremlin in the region. Pro-Russian social media channels and Telegram accounts have seemingly corroborated these reports by describing a massive drone wave that led to significant damage and loss of life within the security facility. This series of events illustrates a shift in Ukrainian strategy toward targeting the very systems of control and intelligence that allow Russia to maintain its grip on occupied territories. The backdrop to this current escalation is a long history of mutual accusations regarding the treatment of non-combatants. Ukraine frequently reminds the international community of incidents such as the recent missile strike on a high-rise residential building in Kyiv, which claimed the lives of 24 people, including 3 young girls. For the people of Ukraine, their resolve to strike back at the military infrastructure that facilitates such attacks. Conversely, the Kremlin uses incidents like the one in Starobilsk to paint the Ukrainian government as a terrorist entity in the eyes of the Russian public, which serves to justify further military mobilization and more aggressive tactics. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov has used the most severe language possible to describe the dormitory strike, calling it a monstrous crime that demands a swift and decisive response. Despite the growing intensity of the fighting, there are signs of renewed diplomatic efforts on the international stage. President Volodymyr Zelensky has recently engaged in high-level discussions with the leaders of Great Britain, France, and Germany to explore new political and diplomatic avenues for ending the war. He has reported that the battlefield situation is currently moving in Ukraine's favor, noting that their forces have reclaimed 590 square kilometers of territory since the beginning of the year. Zelensky is now looking towards Washington with the hope of receiving new diplomatic proposals that could lead to a strategic resolution of the crisis. He emphasizes that coordination with international partners is more critical than ever to ensure that any future peace process is built on a foundation of strength and territorial integrity. As we look towards the future, the events in Starobilsk serve as a grim reminder of the high stakes involved in this protracted struggle. The use of advanced drone technology has made it possible for both sides to strike deep behind enemy lines, but it has also increased the risk to civilians who find themselves living near military targets or in buildings repurposed for the war effort. The Russian promise of retribution suggests that the cycle of violence is far from over, and the world remains on edge, waiting to see how the Kremlin will choose to respond to the loss of its personnel and infrastructure. For the students and teachers of the pedagogical university, the war is no longer a distant headline, but a physical reality that has shattered their lives and their community. As long as both sides remain entrenched in their respective narratives and committed to military victory, the path to peace will remain obscured by the smoke of the battlefield. The coming weeks will likely see an increase in aerial operations and a further hardening of political positions as each nation prepares for the next phase of this era-defining conflict.